Hello, welcome back. Well, I confess to you that I've had some misgivings about the last two videos. I mean, what was their point? Anyway, why don't I just get on to Aristotle and the development of character? The truth is that I did have a bit of an existential crisis this summer. More than just your normal worrying about the general state of affairs, I was struck by a strong feeling that the world that I had always taken as fixed, the background of my life, was crumbling. Whether you agree with me or not on what I was ranting about, the subject is not really relevant to this discussion. These are my feelings, my emotions. We all have emotions, and for each of us, they're totally personal. I can't feel your emotions, and you can't feel mine. We can only really understand our own emotions, and we can only control our own emotions. This video is about emotions and controlling them. The book Falter, as I said, caused me to consider that the world that I always regarded as unending was ending. An unending world is foundational to everything that follows. That foundation was shaken for me. On the night of July 4th, there were a number of good fireworks displays in the neighborhood surrounding my house. Nobody put them on, no organization. They were all spontaneous displays by just people in their backyards. And they were good. For one moment, watching that, it made me think of an America where we all shared a sense of togetherness, a common bond, a vision of America, perhaps from my naive youth. But after a moment, I realized that most likely those people that were shooting off their fireworks were from a different tribe than me, and that we wouldn't be singing Kumbaya together. It brought me back to the idea that the American dream, the unending promise of a philosophical ideal, was ending as well. Another blow to my existential foundations. I don't think you can really see or appreciate the relevance of my pandemic rants considered apart from the fact that I am addressing my progeny. It's a hard word, progeny. I'm not giving lessons here in philosophies. I am sharing with you the development of my philosophical thought. These thoughts can't be separated in some metaphysical way from the world of my experience. Maybe the lesson that I want to share is in these thoughts, but the explication of my experience was necessary. See that little bookcase behind me? The books that are in it are written by or written about Baruch Spinoza, the 17th century Dutch philosopher, Friedrich Nietzsche, the late 19th century German philosopher, and William James, the late 19th century and early 20th century American philosopher. These are my guys right now. These are where my thoughts come from. Now, here is the gist of my message, which I'm going to flesh out if you stay with me. First, the principle of causality. You must understand that everything in our world is caused by something else. Everything. You can go a long way towards finding peace about things if you ask yourself, with respect to anything, what was the cause of that? Not just a single cause, but the whole causal chain going back to infinity. Seeking understanding of causes is a very important part of controlling emotions. Second, events cause us to feel emotions, a physical event. Emotions affect the body and the mind. The body and the mind work in parallel to each other. And emotions affect our power to act, our physical power to act. Thirdly, there are two types of emotions. They're either active or passive. Passive emotions are those that are caused by some external source. They diminish our power to act and our power to affect others. Active emotions are self-caused. They come from within us. They increase our power to act and to affect others. Active emotions can overcome passive emotions. So if we learn to use our power to act, to control our emotions, to assert power over them and not let them control us, we will find greater tranquility, peace. Fourth, reason, our intellect, is how we develop the logical ideas which direct our will to active emotions. Reasoning with adequate, clear, distinct ideas, logical ideas, produces active emotions. With a life of reason, we gain clarity about the causal forces that are determining our circumstances, the causal forces at work within us physically and emotionally, and the causal forces at work in the world around us. Most of the behavior of others that we find it difficult to understand is the result of people not using logical, rational ideas, but illogical, what I have called confused ideas. Why are those people who are upsetting me acting the way they are? It doesn't make sense to me. Well, bless their hearts. The reason is they have confused ideas. Maybe they're mocking me for wearing a face mask because they're angry, having lost their jobs or not being able to live their lives like they normally do. And they mix these emotions of anger with confused, illogical ideas about the causal forces that are creating these effects. They become prisoners of their own emotions. Finally, if we understand the causal mechanisms of nature and accept them as uncontradictable, then we gain freedom from emotional upset. Acceptance of the world as it is brings peace of mind. If you can't control it, live with it rationally. Now, I want to elaborate on these points. I begin with the fact that everything in the world is caused by some other event. This is a principle of causality, the principle of cause and effects. Every event is an effect and has another event as a cause and is itself the cause of yet another event. It's a universal law of nature. And you, my friend, are a part of nature. All those natural laws, all that science stuff, they apply to you and me. Everything you do has a cause. That's how nature works. So imagine, here I am, so despondent, so depressed in my emotional state about my existential crises, that it will affect my physical self. I'm like Alvy Singer. What's the point? I'm mentally and physically depressed. My mind is down and so is my body. As I said, mind and body work in parallel. With a depressed mind and body, my power to act is reduced. I cannot get off the couch and Netflix and be productive. Why? I just don't feel like it. Feeling is an emotion. The external world situation has caused me, for some reason, to feel emotions that have affected me physically. This gets to the age-old question of free will and determinism. Am I determined by the mechanistic laws of nature to be a couch potato? Or can I, despite nature's laws, exercise my will to get up off the couch and do something? This is important because it relates to our power to control our emotions, which put me on the couch in the first place. The question whether we have free will or are determined has occupied philosophers forever. For some people, maybe you, the idea that we don't have free will is very disturbing. The debate goes on and on. It can wear you out. But personally, I don't think it's worth the effort. Whichever side wins the debate, it's not going to change who you are. If you were a strong free will person and the determinists win the debate, you're not going to say, what's the use of anything? The outcome is determined. You're going to keep on processing decisions just like you do now, only you'll understand the process a little better. Let me tell you about William James. He is regarded as the father of American philosophy and the father of American psychology. Charles Darwin, had published The Origin of Species in 1859. This caused great debate in the day on free will and determinism. Now James, who had his medical degree from Harvard, was pretty sickly and very depressed. He was deeply concerned about this relationship between his health and the possibility that he lacked free will. Did he have control over his choices and his health? Or was his fate determined mechanistically? The thought that he lacked control depressed him further. What was the point? He asked. Here's an entry from his diary in 1870. I think that yesterday was a crisis in my life. I finished the first part of Renouvoir's second essay. Renouvoir is a French philosopher, and saw no reason why his definition of free will, the sustaining of a thought because I choose to, when I might have other thoughts, I see no reason that that shouldn't be the definition of an illusion. At any rate, I will assume for the present, until next year, that it is no illusion. My first act of free will shall be to believe in free will. That choice gave him the power to go on and become one of this country's greatest thinkers. It doesn't matter who wins the free will and determinism debate. We need to act as if we have free will. Now, remember, every effect has a cause. James's decision was an effect. What was the cause? What was the cause of his decision to choose to believe in free will? We can, and philosophers do, distinguish two types of causes. One is transient, event causation. This is what we've been talking about. An event is caused by some other event. Event causation is external. The other type of cause is immanent or agent caused, self-caused. It's internal. It is inherent in the agent. So here, we could support the conclusion that James's decision was event causation. His decision to believe in free will was deterministically caused. His will, the will, is a modification of the brain by which it is then disposed to action. Humans act based on impulse, and they act according to the necessary laws. There are two causes for acts based on impulse: hereditary and environmental causes, genetic and social causes. So there's in our mind, there are a complex of causes that form the bases or the basis for our impulses. The strongest impulse you have in making a decision or choice is the one you will choose to do. Something always determines the choice you will make. Thus, James's decision to believe that he has free will was, upon his reading of Renouvoir and reflection, his strongest impulse, and was determined by the laws of nature. Or we could just say that his decision was based on something internal within himself, something separate from some other event, that it was just self-caused. Does it matter? It simply doesn't matter. The fact is that he exercised his will to make the choice, whatever the cause. What matters to me is this idea of self-causation. Assuming we are depressed by the state of the world, we are being acted upon by external forces. Ultimately, the events of the world are causing emotions leading to our depression and our decreased power to act. These are passive emotions. But if we recognize that we have the power to exercise our will and self-cause active emotions, we can overcome and defeat those externally caused emotions. We may be determined, but we can influence the causal chain. Let me say that again, because to me that's important. We may be determined, but we still can influence through our exercise of will the causal chain. I want to say a word here about recognizing the power. Way back in 1977, 43 years ago, I made a conscious decision to be happy. I can see myself saying out loud, I will be happy. When I said I will, I was not making a prediction. I was saying that I was determined to be happy, that I was setting a goal to be happy. Now we know, we've talked about this, that everybody wants to be happy. But wanting and willing are two different things. I've talked to many people over the years who were surprised by the idea of setting a goal to be happy. They never thought of that. They thought happiness was something that happened. They did not recognize that happiness is a choice. It's that conscious act of will that makes happiness possible. My friend Nietzsche over there, like James, was sickly and depressed until he discovered what he called the will to health, the will to power. Thereafter, like James, came his greatness. My 1977 declaration that I will be happy was my discovery of the will to happiness. By the way, I achieved my happiness goal. It only took about 25 years. This is our superpower. Our superpower, our will to power. Our ability to direct our will to overcome anything the world throws at us. Anything. The collapse of democracy, environmental catastrophes, personal sorrows, sickness, career setbacks, anything. We can use our superpower to overcome negative emotions and find tranquility, even in the face of existential crises. To do that, we need to improve our soul. And that's what I'm going to talk about in the next one. So, give me a moment.